We're following new developments in the Russia investigation surrounding two of President Trump's former allies. Ahead of former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn's sentencing on Tuesday, the special counsel filed a rare rebuttal of Flynn's claims of being tricked into making false statements to the FBI. Flynn says he should have been warned about the consequences of lying to investigators. Meanwhile, Trump's longtime lawyer and fixer Michael Cohen is now telling his story after being sentenced to 3 years in prison. Watch as he disputes the president's claims about illegal hush money payments.
He directed me to make the payments. He directed me to become involved in these matters, including the one with McDougal.
And he knew it was wrong?
Of course.
And he was doing that to help his election?
You have to remember at what point in time that this matter came about, 2 weeks or so before the election, post the Billy Bush comments. So yes, he was very concerned about how this would affect the election.
Joining me now is Nedd Price, former National Security Council spokesman for President Obama and an MSNBC national security analyst. Still with me, Jeff Mason, Reuters White House correspondent, and Katie Phang, attorney and MSNBC contributor. Katie, let's start with Michael Flynn here. This seems like a pretty unusual sort of back and forth. What's the legal value of Flynn's statement or the Mueller team's response to his statements?
So what Michael Flynn was trying to do, Aaron, is kind of mitigate and kind of make up an excuse. There's been some pundits who've maybe put out there, maybe he was asking for that last-ditch pardon from Donald Trump. But the reality is the guy has already pleaded guilty. He knowingly lied to the FBI. And Aaron, if you'll recall, the White House was warned about Michael Flynn possibly being compromised by the Kremlin. There's audio surveillance of him talking to Ambassador Kislyak. So really, the guy is dead to rights. He's already pleaded guilty. And really, what's interesting is Mueller says, hold a second, this guy was the National Security Advisor, so we were supposed to warn him that it's a crime to lie to the FBI. That's like saying, don't commit murder because you could be charged for it and you could be going to jail for it. So it's not credible, it's not believable, it's just a whole lot of nothing right before he gets sentenced on December 18th.
Jeff, Donald Trump has not attacked Michael Flynn in the public. Katie sort of mentioned it here. Is there consideration about a presidential pardon for him? What are you hearing?
Well, it's hard to say. The president, when we ask him about whether he's considering pardons for people like Paul Manafort and others, has always said that he's not taking something like that off the table. So I'm sure it's not off the table in this situation either. But we haven't talked to him specifically about that. We do know certainly that the president is watching closely this case and everybody else who is involved in testifying or speaking to the special prosecutor. And it's on his radar, both for how it'll affect him and how it's affecting these people who were part of his inner circle.
Ned, I'm sort of curious, based on your experience with the National Security Council, are there any special cases where a National Security Advisor would need to lie or to make misleading statements about communications with foreign entities?
I cannot think of one, nor have I experienced one. Look, this was, at the time, the National Security Advisor. The last time I saw Michael Flynn in the White House, he was being briefed on all the covert action programs and the special intelligence programs that were being run and pursued around the world. This was not an unsophisticated policymaker. This is someone who had been vaulted to the top echelon of the National Security Council and then the foreign policy infrastructure. This is not someone who needed to be reminded that he needed to tell the truth. But there's another element to all of this. Michael Flynn's defenders are saying that, look, the FBI even said he came off as truthful in this interview, that Michael Flynn seemed relaxed, that he seemed at ease, that he seemed jocular with these FBI agents. The fact of the matter is that the FBI agents had, it seems, the actual transcript of his phone call with the Russian ambassador. So it's not as if they needed his behavior to tell them that he was lying. They had the answer sheet in front of him. They knew exactly, it seems, what he said on that call that came under criminal scrutiny later.
So, Katie, we do have the sentencing on Tuesday. The Mueller team has recommended little to no time. What are your expectations for Flynn on Tuesday?
I will predict that it's going to be little to no time, especially as the Mueller team has recommended it. And Aaron, I'll just point this out. Think about the value that Michael Flynn has as of now. He's spoken to Mueller. He's given his valuable information, a lot of which we know was redacted from that filing that came out just about a week ago. And so really, he has no value add left. And so this kind of last-ditch effort for him to sit here and say that he was, lured or tricked into lying into the FBI, his value is done. We've got what we need from him for Robert Mueller, and so he's probably going to get just a few months in jail, I suspect, on Tuesday.
Katie, I want to get your take on an NBC News report that confirms that the president was the third person in the room when Michael Cohen and the publisher of the National Enquirer, David Pecker, talked about the tabloid and how we can help sort of keep a lid on negative stories about Trump's alleged affairs with women. Listen to what a former executive at the National Enquirer's parent company had to say about all this.
Absolutely no way could he have not known this was happening. Look at the scenarios they're outlining here, especially the individual one who you guys have now shown as Trump. He was the quarterback. Pecker's the receiver.
But Trump is still denying his involvement here. What legal challenges, Katie, do you think President Trump could face going forward?
We now have Donald Trump in a room with Michael Cohen and David Pecker, the three of them conspiring to commit campaign finance violations by suppressing stories from women that have had illicit relationships with Donald Trump, who was then a presidential candidate. You heard Michael Cohen himself say it, and it's totally true. Timing is everything. On the eve of the 2016 presidential election, we have two payments made to two women that could potentially derail President Trump in his successful bid to become president of the United States. There are two people that are left to really hear from. That is David Pecker, who we know is in the room, and Alan Weisselberg, who also got immunity from the Southern District of New York just a few months ago. Alan Weisselberg is the chief financial officer of the Trump Organization, and so you want to follow that money trail, Aaron, and you want to see where did that money go, who knew what, because those two other men, David Pecker and Alan Weisselberg, could more directly implicate Donald Trump in this conspiracy.
All right, and we will leave the discussion there. Nedd Price and Jeff Mason, thank you. Katie Phang, stick around. We'll see you in a little bit here. Still ahead, a Texas judge rules Obamacare